Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you had a nice Halloween. This is the morning after the day after, or whatever the phrase is, the morning after the night before. Is that the phrase I'm looking for? I think it is. All right. One person who had a good Halloween was Oscar De La Hoya. And I know this because there he was, at the press conference for his final press conference for his show on Saturday. And there he was dressed as Joker. And with a big, big grin on his face, a big manic grin on his face. What can we... And it got me thinking about, what can we say about Oscar De La Hoya? I mean, I think he is he's a strange one, isn't he? Let's talk about the show that he's got on Saturday, because a lot of people have said that Golden Boy is under the cosh, not producing as many shows as it did. It's. There's the back and forth with him and Eddie Hearn, which we'll get to in a moment because I think that's quite funny. But the show on Saturday has Floyd Schofield taking on a guy with 20-3 record, 20 wins, 3 defeats, Rene Tellez Giron. Schofield is undefeated, 17 wins, no draws, no defeats, and is being clearly groomed as a Golden Boy star. We've also got Beck the Bully, Bektamir Melakuziev taking on David Stevens, who's 14-1. Melakuziev also has a defeat on his record, which is to Gabe Rosado, which he avenged with a points victory. In fact, he lost in 3 rounds to Rosado. I think Rosado retired after. Was that his last fight? It might have been. And then we've got, to me, what is the pick of the bunch, which is a woman's fight. And this is Gabriela Fundora against another Gabriela Celeste Alanes, who is 15-1. Now, Fundora is the younger sister of Sebastian Fundora, the current unified 154-pound fighter. But I'll tell you this, if you can find me a female fighter, I'll stick to the women's game, with more ferocity and nastiness than Gabriela Fundora, I think you'll be doing boxing a big favour. This young lady, I think she's only 22. She might have turned 22 recently. She's a nasty piece of work in the ring. And you would not believe, this is real Clark Kent stuff, or whatever the female equivalent is. Because outside the ring, she's got her glasses on, she's smiling, she's got a big smile, and she comes across as being, when she's interviewed, as being a very nice young lady, a little bit geeky maybe. I mean, I don't mean that in a rude way. Perish the thought. But she just seems like a really nice, nice young woman. And when she gets in the ring, she's a savage. You've never seen a female fighter more intent on landing knockout punches with every combination. And the 10-2s, which I don't particularly like, it suits her because from the word go, she's trying to knock you out. Now, Gabriela Alanes, who's her opponent, 15 wins and 1 defeat. The defeat was 2 fights ago to Marlon Esparza. There's no shame in that at all. There's a majority decision actually as well, so a close one. And then she fought Marlon again in her most recent fight and won a split decision. So she can fight a bit herself, but this one against Gabriela Fundora is for the IBF, the WBC, and the WBO flyweight titles. And Gabriela Fundora is 5 inches taller than Gabriela Alanes. She is 5'8", 5'8" flyweight, and is even talking about going down to light fly once she's picked up all the belts at flyweight. Her and her brother, they're like, whenever you see them standing together, it's like someone's adjusted the screen and made them. It's like those, if you're old enough to remember those Hall of Mirrors things at the fun fair you'd get, where you'd go in there, and if you're thin, you'd end up looking all fat and with a double chin, and if you're really fat, suddenly you'd be thin, and it's very funny. I remember as a kid loving that going to the fun fair and seeing that. But anyway, it's like that because they're both turned sideways and they're both fucked off. They're both tall and thin, reed-like thin. But of course, those tall, long-limbed with the long muscles, these freakish fighters. I'm thinking, of course, of Tommy Hearns, who's the obvious example, that welterweight, 6'1" welterweight. They do generate power. Deontay Wilder's another guy who could wallop a bit with the right hand, and he was skinny as hell, broad-shouldered, but skinny, real V shape with the V, a very tall, thin V shape, you know. So yeah, anyway, I'm digressing. I mean, that fight I'm really looking forward to, and it's a 3-belt unification fight on this Golden Boy card. Now, getting back to Oscar, because I digressed there, but you know, never mind. Getting back to Oscar, what a strange cat he is. What a strange man. He has these things called, he does it on a Thursday, it's called Clapback Thursday on one of the channels. I can't remember which channel it is. My apologies for not checking this out before I started doing this video, but every week he will go through all the things that have been said about him, all those people that have been nasty to poor old Oscar and called him rude names, and he'll basically take the piss and highlight the fact that so-and-so is not very nice and so-and-so has done this and, you know, this is inaccurate. So, right, okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. All promoters do that. And if Oscar wants to do it via a sort of weekly little show, mini show, that's fine. But one person he's really banging heads with is Eddie Hearn. And while he was dressed as the Joker yesterday at his press conference for his gig, he's even sang a song to Eddie, my friend Eddie. It's all a bit creepy, but then I suppose it's the Joker, and it's Halloween, so it's supposed to be creepy. But, you know, it's the type of thing that might get poor old Oscar put on some sort of register. I don't know. I mean, bless him, he's not got a very good track record, has he, Oscar, with strangeness, shall we say. But I hope the guys in white coats don't take him away. But he's also, this goes back a couple of weeks to when he did one of these Clapback Thursdays when he was talking about Hearn, and he made the statement that Hearn has had 14 of his fighters lose in the last year, which actually was a load of nonsense, because if the 14 that he quickly showed on the screen, I mean, one of them was Billy Joe Saunders. When was the last time Billy Joe Saunders fought? 4 years ago? And there were another couple there that didn't belong in this calendar year, or even if you go just back 12 months to what is now, you know, well, let's say October 2023. Some of these fights were not in that time span. Nevertheless, the point is made. Eddie has suffered a lot of defeats lately. The 5 versus 5 is the obvious one, you know, and not all of those were UK fighters, of course. Ammo Williams lost, and, you know, Deontay Wilder was hired for one fight, got chinned by, you know, Zhang and so on. So yeah, Eddie's having a rough time of it. I made a video a couple of days ago saying, you know, we want to see what you're made of now, Eddie. You know, step up to the plate now. You know, you're not having things your own way. And there's more to it than just some of your fighters getting beaten, because as Eddie Hearn has said about Oscar, he said, Oscar, first of all, Oscar doesn't put on any shows. He's got a crap stable, which is, you know, not entirely true, but I would still say that Eddie at DAZN has more of a stable than Oscar does. But Eddie, yes, he's lost some of these fights. His fighters have been losing, there's no doubt about it. But at the same time, you get peaks and troughs. Sometimes promoters, their guys will lose, sometimes they'll win. But the point is, as Eddie himself has said, if you put your fighters in tough fights, they will sometimes lose. It's inevitable. And I don't think you can dispute that. Now, when was the last time one of Oscar's fighters was in a tough fight? Probably Ryan Garcia against Devin Haney. And we know how that went. And we know what happened after it as well. And we know what's happening legally with Devin Haney and his team suing not just Ryan Garcia, but Golden Boy. Now, how will that pan out? I don't know. But it is as Eddie Hearn himself has said, and I said this in a video several months ago. Look, if Haney wins that legal case, that blows the doors off for some sort of clean-up of boxing. Because what is being said is, if that legal precedent is set, what will then happen? And I know in America you have state-to-state legislation, but you have federal law as well, which can, in many respects, I mean, I'm no legal, but it can surpass it. It can override state law. What you're saying is that if somebody wins a fight and pops hot for PEDs, then they can be sued. They can be held liable. In other words, they can pay with the wallet. And all this, 1 year ban bullshit is absolutely irrelevant. It's completely pointless because you're talking about, a guy, all right, yeah, 6 months off, goes into training, a year later he's ready to fight again, and he can still make his millions or her millions. So that legal precedence that could be set if the Haney side win, it's very, very interesting. It's going to have big ramifications for boxing long term. And of course, De La Hoya is sort of poo-pooing it and trying to dismiss it and push it to one side. I'm interested to see how that goes. Let's put it that way. But Oscar, we know Oscar's had, his issue with addiction. He's been into, rehab and all that sort of stuff. And okay, I used to work with people who had addiction issues. I think anyone that turns it around in their life, it deserves an awful lot of credit. But I don't know. Occasionally I've seen Oscar and I think, maybe you've fallen off the wagon, mate. Maybe you should, start to reassess things. And I don't have anything against Oscar. I wish him nothing but the very best. But the to-in and fro-in, the back and forth with Oscar and Eddie is quite funny to watch. Eddie's clearly, I think, the more stable of people. He has said, Oscar De La Hoya couldn't lace my boots as a promoter. Oscar said, you're just a bad promoter, Eddie, I wish you nothing but the very best. Then he says, well, actually, no, I don't, but it's all a bit of piss taking in it. It's all a bit of a wind up, but I don't know. Oscar, I think, seeing him in that Joker garb, I was just thinking, has there ever been a more apt Halloween costume than that? Because he is quite crazy, isn't he? A little bit. He's got that crazy like a fox element to him. But I have to say, I quite enjoy the little banter, the little going back and forth, because I think they do secretly both wind each other up quite a lot. And Eddie said, whenever I meet Oscar, he's really nice to me. He's licking my arse. So anyway, what do you think? Do you enjoy this sort of nonsense? Or is it a bit of playground rubbish? Because very often I will think, this is so childish, this is so infantile. But sometimes, just occasionally, I'll see, it's usually with promoters. I think this is the reason. Because with promoters, I don't really care about promoters in the sense that I don't really, these are guys who are going to be around for as many decades as they want to be around. Fighters, I'm always on the side of the fighter, provided they're honest. Because I don't like to see fighters squabbling and talking trash to each other, because I respect fighters and I especially don't like showboating, especially when one guy is outclassed. And, the guy who's got so much more of his talent, like the Ben Whittaker thing. I don't like Ben Whittaker's antics. Any fool can showboat against guys who you're clearly better than. Some guy's just an honest pro. He's outclassed. You don't have to humiliate the guy. I don't like that shit. But with promoters, I think it's actually quite funny because I don't really have a horse in the race. So I'm like, let them squabble, let them behave like children, like, Frank with his shoulder roll and his rants, and Eddie with his sort of piss taking, and sometimes I'm on Eddie's side. Like if he's against Simon Jordan, I'll probably be on Eddie's side. Sometimes with Eddie and Frank, I might side with one or the other. I might agree with one or the other, but I don't particularly care. And with De La Hoya and Eddie, and also throw Ben Shalom into the mix, because he's stirring the pudding a bit, isn't he? I quite enjoy it. I must be honest. Maybe it's the kid in me. I don't know. But let me know what you think. Give me your opinions. And you leave your comments below. I like reading them. And please subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hit the like button if you don't mind doing that. That'd be great, because you're helping out the channel. Much love to you. We'll speak again soon. Bye for now.